Let's talk all about AI in business. It's hosted by Brent Muller. Welcome to the Future Proof Podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of the Future Proof Podcast. I'm your host, Brent Muller, and my guest today is Jim Cichanski from Flex HR. Jim, great to have you.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, welcome. So let's jump right in and let's talk about your background and just kind of introduce yourself to the audience.
Sure. Well, I'm Jim Cichanski. I'm an HR professional, been an HR professional all my life. I think I'm breaking 53 years of being an HR professional, but I founded Flex HR 5 years ago, and it was a baby of mine that I grew and grew to the fastest growing HR consulting and outsourcing firm in the Southeast, and enjoyed doing it. I'm still with Flex HR, but I sold 4 years ago.
Fantastic. I love it. You exit, but you still got your hands in it.
Right. Yep.
So Tim, you have seen, well, let's talk a little bit about Flex's mission. And you were just telling me earlier that you were kind of a fractional chief people officer before that was even a term.
It was before it was a term. So as I was doing an acquisition one day, took that company down by literally 50% of its acquisition value because of the HR problems they had, and it was going to be a stock purchase. So when I was coming home on the plane, I drew up on a napkin saying, hey, I got this concept for fractional leader of HR for companies because I did it for 26 years. I was in the Illinois National Guard. And when I was not commanding combat artillery, they threw me in HR assignments. So my last 4 years, I ran a state HR program, almost 13,000 troops and 4,000 civil service employees that did it part-time. And I says, hey, if I could do that part-time, build a business that provides this fractional leadership of HR in small to mid-sized companies. And that's kind of like where our sweet spot is, and just kept on growing the concept. And as people got more comfortable with outsourcing and doing it as a fractional piece because they got a huge value for the price, it started really carrying on. And then, of course, when COVID hit and other companies figured out, wow, everything could be done from home, outsourcing business just boomed like crazy.
No doubt about it. And I can't even imagine, what happened after COVID. But which is, as I tell everybody, COVID was throwing a bunch of companies into the deep end of the pool when they weren't ready for it, and they just had to figure it out, right? But what you had been doing all along was really you were trailblazer way ahead of your time, because fractional now is how startups and companies are growing and scaling faster than ever, and because they can get talent and leadership right with your experience, but for a fraction of what a normal full-time headcount is. People were not really keen to understanding that model, and you built that model way years in advance. So like I was saying, you should have been able to trademark the fractional model.
Yeah, probably should have.
Jim, you've done, again, for all the audience, we were talking earlier, you've done over 350 M&A transactions. Tell me what, like in your past, like, because I imagine they run the gamut. Just tell me your experience of that, and then some of the types of deals. Maybe you have a story or two.
I probably have 100 stories or 350 stories, right? But the one thing that is pretty common, and that's why my clients keep on calling me back as they do more acquisitions, and that is they don't think about the 90-day plan with people prior to the acquisition, the 120-day plan after the acquisition. What are we going to tell the people the before? Who's going to go meet with the managers of the new company? What's the story going to be? How are we going to comfort the manager saying that we're taking care of you? These are the people who are leaving. The rest of the people are there. These are their jobs. These are their bonus plans. This is the benefits they're going to be on for the comfort of those people, because a lot of people, when they aren't told those type of things, what do? They get nervous and they jump ship. They're afraid
Absolutely.
it's the water.
Yeah.
And, jobs are pretty valuable today, and almost anybody in positions could find a job tomorrow, and they'll go jump ship without testing that water. So you got to make them comfortable literally day one, and make the managers of the company you're buying that night before have a dinner with them. This is what you need to tell them. Sitting your CEO or new CEO. A lot of times when two companies merge, they don't even know who's going to be the CEO.
Right. Yeah. Which C-suite wins out, right?
And then who's going to be the CFO and all this other stuff. And let's get that in order, because as soon as you're acquired, you got to do this, this, and that. And you have to be under control. And that person needs to know their job and everything behind it. So, those are fun times. We did an acquisition about 2 years ago now. It was during COVID, right after COVID, but people were still working at home. And it was a pretty large acquisition. And I think there was something like 21 facilities that these people were supposed to be in, that they were acquiring this company, but they were all working from home. And it was an asset purchase. So I asked a question, because, I'm an operational mind. I'm just not only people, and said, wait a minute, do you need the facilities? They're like, well, we're wondering if we're going to go back to them. It's like, dump them now during the asset purchase so you don't take them over. Right. And there was a pause, and they went back and figured out, it's like, you just saved us several $1 million.
Yeah. By asking a question.
It's just those things that I see happening, by other acquisitions that others don't think about. My gosh, they were ready to go sign leases on all those buildings that they had people that were supposed to be in them but weren't in them, when they were going to go to a virtual business anyway. So that was a great story. I mean, I could stories all day long about how people don't know what they're going to do, and they want to leave, but they're hearing wrong stories. I like to always build a frequently asked questions and hand it out, not only to the company we're acquiring, but the company that acquires them, because they need to know the answers to where their direction is, where they're going. And I find that to be a very, very interesting exercise, because when you start pinpointing marketing departments, finance departments, CEOs, what's the answer on this one? What are you going to tell them?
Right. Oh, yeah.
And then all of a sudden they say, yeah, this is serious, and people need to know this.
Right. And there's different levels of communication. And that 90-day plan you have pre, and then the 120 after post, that's huge.
It is.
And I've been enough acquisitions, deals myself to know how many times that is screwed up.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah. Forget about the people side of it. And then, like, all of a sudden people are jumping ship, all of that. They already laid off a whole bunch of people. And it's like, now what do we do? Call them back, do all this. Oh, I don't want to come back. I hear this and that about you. It's, goes around in a circle. Yeah.
Well, Tim, just because I guarantee we could talk shop for hours, which would be great. But I want to make sure that we get, for everybody listening out there, because every founder that I've ever talked to, this is one of their hot buttons of, how to attract, keep, and motivate, right? Top talent. But so tell me, in your experience, especially over the last, 20, 25 years, what you've seen a change in the industry, and then kind of what are you seeing as you look forward in the next few years?
Yeah, so interesting. I have always been a networker and always went to events. And when I started up Flex HR, I had people standing in line wanting to come to the company and join me. But, that's because of the networking and the people understanding who you are, what you are, and then they want to come and work for you. So I think networking and always keeping literally a benchmark of people ready to come and work for you is important. And I tell you, most managers don't understand that, don't do that. There's a lot of companies that don't understand that and don't do that. But let me tell you, that costs less money going to the events, having a dinner with your colleagues, getting to know them, getting to know who's doing what companies might be weak and who you could go draw people on and all of that kind of stuff. That's important to finding the right people at the beginning and not kind of like, oh, I got to go interview these 12 people I don't even know. And then I got to pick one. And, my chances of that person making it is probably a 50% chance. And so I really like to introduce to almost everybody that networking, finding the people, you go find the people and have them find you and have good conversation with them, have coffees with them, understand them. So you're ready to hire that person when you need another head.
I couldn't agree with you more. Was a good friend of mine who's a CTO. That's his number one thing is keeping that network tight and strong, but constantly expanding it and finding, better talent. So when he gets that next role in that next company, he brings that team right on the ground that he trusts, right? Mm-hmm. But that he also is teaching those folks to do the same thing you just mentioned, which is phenomenal.
Yeah. And as I remember starting my business so many years ago, I would have referral partners. And those referral partners were very important to provide those type of leads. And do you know of anybody that is looking for a job in this area? I can remember talking to an investigator. And I says, well, I have no idea if I'm ever going to need an investigator for any one of my clients ever. However, I'm going to put you on my referral list because I know you and I know that what you could do. And who knows, just in case I might need you one day. My gosh, in 2 months, I was using a guy. I had a CEO that said, I think my wife is sleeping around and I want to investigate. I know the person.
Fantastic. You never know. You're exactly right.
Yep.
Well, and you know what? That CEO won't forget that you had a resource for him, right? It's huge. Yeah, absolutely. So as you look forward, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I love it. So as you look forward, how do you see the industry changing?
Oh, the industry has changed so much in, the years that I've been in it, but it's changing again. We are seeing, well, first of all, we're seeing a lot more outsourcing. And the reason why is that recruiting angle that we were just talking about. Companies can't find good talent. And when they find good talent, they can't keep that talent. Especially when you have one-person departments. I mean, when you have 100 employees, 75 to 100 employees, you only have one HR person in your company.
Right.
That person goes, 100% of the department goes. And if that person turns over 3 times in a year, what happens to that CFO or the CEO who's responsible for that job? It's like, you know what? Let me take a look at outsourcing because if somebody goes in their department, they keep me alive. Then they keep me, whereas I'm dead right now. I can't even get payroll out and all this other stuff, So I'm seeing that a lot. Recruiting is still tough. It is, a game of finding people. And I tell you, in today's society, you could have an interview scheduled to talk to somebody and that person just doesn't show up for an interview. That's the nature of the beast today. And when you try to contact, if you do finally contact them, oh, I found a job. Like they don't even have the common sense that our lives will probably cross paths again to call up and say, hey, I'm not coming in for the interview.
Right.
So it's quite interesting. That's happening. We are seeing payrolls getting tougher and tougher with all the laws and regulations. And in fact, I just talked to a couple of payroll companies saying, gee, are you ready if it gets passed that there's you don't have to pay tax on overtime? And they're like, no, we're talking about it, but we we're talking about a major rebuild of software to make that happen.
Yeah,
And
I believe it.
and we're seeing those things running fast. These states are implementing sick leave policies today. I think 4 more states this year announced they are going to implement a sick leave policy for all the companies. And these companies have to redo their benefits. They have to make a decision if they're going to roll it into PTO, but then you have to roll some over to the next year, but their PTO policy doesn't allow that. And then it's all rebuilding their payroll platforms to make all of this work. So there's a lot of changes going on, a lot of different laws going on. And of course, now that we have a new tenant at the White House, we are going to see a bunch more of these changes happen or reverse. So it's interesting.
So how much does you see, and part of the future proofs, right, is AI, automation, data, right? How do you see that influencing the HR area?
Well, it's been influencing the HR area for a long time, and probably one of the first pieces of HR that got automated, obviously, is payroll. And then came the K plans that needed to be integrated in payroll because of all the deductions and all of that stuff. And that became another technology boom for the HR group. But as we have grown, the payroll systems now have become HRIS systems, which now manage everything, onboard the person. I mean, you could have it to a point where, okay, I hired this person, let me put their name in the system, and then the employee has to fill out all their paperwork themselves. It's all automated to a point where there's no human intervention actually in the process if you wanted to totally automate the system. A lot of companies haven't gone to full automation strictly because of the face time with the employee.
Yeah, I get that.
And it makes the employee feel like they're working for a machine instead of a person, and you can have this dialect with them. So there's a lot of companies that are still putting that personal touch and not having total automation happen. In the AI world, there's 2 facets we deal with. We use it ourselves, but secondly, we actually help build policies for our clients to put in their handbooks.
Fantastic.
And there are some companies that say, hey, don't want AI at all. Or if you use AI, please you need to tell your manager that the product you produce came from AI, because AI has always been pretty good. But there's that 5 to 10% that's not that great.
Right.
We ask it to write a policy today. Let's say, gee, AI, write a policy on work from home.
Right.
Okay. They're going to get some stuff right and some stuff wrong. They're not going to get the personal stuff that the company wants, like, hey, if you're going to work from home, and if you're voluntarily working from home because we have space for you at the office, that's a volunteer work from home. So you don't get to have equipment and all that. You have to have your own equipment. You have to have your own lines, all this other stuff, right? Compared to if, hey, I don't have place for you. You have to work from home, so you have to have this, this, and that, and we're going to provide it for you, or we'll give you a stipend to provide for it. So a lot of difference. Confidentiality information, they don't grab all that saying, hey, you got to keep your lines, with passwords and all that. You just can't do that. Make sure you don't have your confidential stuff showing on your dining room table when your friends come over, because those are the things it misses.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll get most of the AI stuff right. And then in the workplace, again, we encourage people to start off using AI when they can to write something brand new, but make sure there's somebody to proof it. You have to proof it. You have to make sure all of the information is proper and it fits your operational needs. You just can't rely on it to be 100% correct.
Got it. One of the terms that comes up, a lot of people don't know, but they've heard, are the PEOs. How do they fit into the whole equation?
So PEOs, I say PEOs have a place for themselves. However, they get expensive. Most PEOs are big companies, and they tout that they could get insurance costs down for the company. And that's why a lot of companies go to PEOs. Because if you have a company of 1 to 10 employees, it's very hard to get
affordable healthcare, right? Yeah.
Benefits. So they have these package benefits you could do. The only trouble is you have to conform to how they do things. And the one thing a lot of owners don't like is that employee doesn't get a paycheck from XYZ company. They get the check from the PEO because
the PEO, right?
The PEO basically owns that employee. It's almost an employer record. They own the employee. They give them the benefits. That's how they could give the company, those people, a good benefit package because they're part of a 2,000, 10,000 employee plan. But the first 10 employees, it's not a bad program at all. Or move to an employer record. A lot of companies do that to get benefits. I mean, there's some really good, small employer records that look like a PEO. So onesie companies, let's say an owner that only has himself as an employee, those are great to move to what I call an executive run record, employer record, because usually you get really, really good benefits and those employees want them. I mean, they were probably Fortune 500 employees that started their own business. They're a onesie company. Maybe they're a consultant in marketing or something like that. And they want a $500 deductible plan from Blue Cross Blue Shield or United Healthcare, and they're willing to pay that money for it, but it's still cheap enough because it's in a group plan.
Got it. Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. All right. So we've covered a whole broad range of HR stuff, which I think is going to be great for folks that are watching this podcast. What haven't we talked about before I get into my final couple questions? Is there anything else that you are like, what else is, Brent, would be a great, topic? Because again, HR's got so many, I don't know, long tail areas, right? For lack of a better term, that, there's just so much to it that people forget about.
Yeah, and I would say the one thing that I see a lot of companies don't do that they need to do, especially the small companies, and that is to have a good handbook and don't go to an attorney because they're going to give you this legal jargon of a handbook. You want one that's operationally working for your company, but yet you have all the legal terms in it, but you write it comfortable for the employee to feel comfortable with it and be able to read it, et cetera, because that handbook protects you as a company and owner. You could go fight unemployment claims with it. You could fight why you terminated the person when you have a good handbook. And then all the other terms that you're going to possibly run into, pregnancy and all of that, you're going to have all these concerns and you should address them up front. So you're showing your employees you're treating everybody fair and you got a good solid handbook to follow.
That's awesome. No, I appreciate that. So as I always do on the podcast for everybody listening, I always end with a couple questions. And Jim, we talked a little bit earlier. So you said that you've been playing with AI or using AI in the business. Tell us if there's any good things that you've done with it personally that you'd like to share. That would be a great story.
Well, I'll go outside of the business. So I'm the president of my HOA, and I had to write some letters to homeowners that weren't pleasant letters to tell them that they have to go fix this or that or whatever. And I actually went to Chat GBT and says, hey, write me a letter. Here's the parameters. And I would say I only had to change a few words.
Fantastic, isn't it? Like, yeah.
So going from 0 to 99%, on something, if you're going to a blank sheet of paper and needing to develop something, that's when I use AI.
Well, and it's funny you say that, right? That's one of my, when anyone that hasn't embraced it yet, that's the first thing I say is think of something that you do that will take you an hour plus, right? And you're not looking forward to it, and let ChatGPT do exactly what you just said, Jim, is let it get you 95% of the way there, if not 99, right? And it saves you hours. And for all the founders and CEOs and entrepreneurs that are part of the podcast, listen to the podcast, this is the kind of thing that I'm trying to beat into everybody's head, is that you can do simple things like this to free your time up and to actually, again, your hours are limited as it is, right? You don't get more of them. Nobody's busier to me than founders and CEOs. And this is a simple way to free up some hours and spend time doing more of what you want, whether it's with your family, your hobbies, whatever, or just on more important things. And Jim, that's a phenomenal example. We've had so many good ones. I can't wait to publish out the founders ChatGPT cheat sheet, which we'll be launching here in a couple of weeks. So last question, Jim, I know you're not responsible for it anymore, but you were for 25 plus years. So if you were to talk about the growth, right, over the next 12 months, which every founder is talking about, especially in January, right? And you said, hey, if we could solve this one thing and I could give you a magic wand to solve it, what would help you hit or exceed that target?
Man, I have to solve one thing.
Well, there's always more than one, but there's always one that goes to the top of the list.
Well, I think the company is doing very well. We're growing at about 20 to 25% a year.
And that's phenomenal.
We put a lot of things in place. We just in the last 2 years or 3 years, we hit the fastest growing Fortune 5,000 list again. So that was the 5th time we got it last year. So we keep on watching and maintaining clients and making sure that our employees embrace and our clients every day to make sure we keep employees so we don't have to worry about replacing clients, and we could just grow new clients instead of replacing them. So I would say that number one thing is to watch your current base, make sure they're well taken care of so that you could grow the business by opening up the back door, allowing new clients to come in and not old clients leaving.
Well, the old adage, right? The old rule is it's 7 times more expensive to get a new client than to keep an old one. So keep the old ones or the current ones and keep them happy and keep them important.
Exactly.
Couldn't agree more. So for those folks that are watching, Jim, tell them how to get in touch with Flex. Again, we'll put all the links below the podcast when it goes live, but how do they get in touch with Flex?
It's easy. www.flexhr.
And tell them a little bit about the specialty, right? Like what type of clients are ideal for Flex?
We ideal clients are small to mid-size. I would say 50 employees to that 200 employee range is our really, really sweet spot where we fill in as their head of HR on a fractional basis, or we basically outsource all of their HR, which includes onboarding the employee, managing their benefits, helping terminate those employees, doing their payrolls, so nobody has to touch a key in the company doing payroll. Let me tell you, a lot of owners love that because they don't like that confidential information sitting on anybody's desk inside the company.
Agreed.
It was amazing how many of our clients love that idea. Yeah, you do payroll and don't tell anybody who makes what. And that's a big plus as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Jim, it has been a pleasure. You're very easy to talk to, but your industry knowledge is phenomenal. And I love the fact that you didn't just do it in the private sector, but you did it for the National Guard in Illinois. So, I so appreciate that and just love hearing the background on the industry. This has been very enlightening. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Enjoyed it.
Well, for everyone else, that's a wrap for today. We will see you on the next episode, and we'll have this up and live here in the next few weeks. Jim, thank you again. And hey, until the next episode, thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
If you're ready to embrace change and lead with innovation, be sure to subscribe and never miss an episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Future Proof Podcast.